Buenas tardes, Samsu todos. Good afternoon, and welcome to the 38th Guam Legislature at the Guam Congress Building. Our public hearing being conducted this afternoon on the budget for Customs and Quarantine. Thank you once again for being here. This afternoon's hearing, conducted by the Committee on Finance and Government Operations, is called to order, and it is now 2 p.m. on the dot, this Monday, April 27, 2026. First notice of this public hearing was disseminated to all senators and media outlets on April 20, 2026, with its second notice disseminated on April 23, 2026. These hearing notices were also made available on the Guam Legislature's website, our legislative calendar, and the Government of Guam's public notice portal. The committee will hear testimony on the following bill on the agenda. Bill number 266-38 COR, Committee on Rules by request of Magaʹhågan Guåhan, Governor of Guam, an act making appropriations for the operations of the executive branch of the Government of Guam for fiscal year ending September 30, 2027, making other appropriations, and establishing miscellaneous and administrative provisions. The focus for this session, this hearing in this session, is the FY2027 Budget Requests for the Customs and Quarantine. At this time, I'd like to welcome my colleagues who are joining us this afternoon. First of all, the Chair and Oversight for Customs, Senator Jesse Guåhan, Sujus Masi, for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Sean Gumatauto, thank you for joining us. The Vice Speaker and the Vice Chair of this committee, Senator Vice Speaker Tony Yadat, thank you for being here. Senator Therese Churlahi, thank you for joining us, as well as Senator Tello Taidagui, Sujus Masi. At this time, I'd like to ask the customs folks, all those who will be testifying, to please come forward at the table here. Go ahead and remain standing as we need to swear you in, as these are budget discussions and contain discussions on fiscal matters. And so our Sergeant at Arms will swear you in, and then we'll get to the presentation and questions and answers. Sarge, you have the floor.
Please raise your right hand. Under penalty of perjury, do you affirm that any and all information you provide today, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay. Mr. Chair, under oath, you may proceed.
Sujus Masi. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone in attendance of Legislator Guåhan's general rules of conduct. Individuals testifying shall first be recognized by the chairperson before speaking and shall state their full name for record-keeping purposes. Questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance and the nature of the bill that is on the agenda. Personal inferences to the character or motive of any senator or individual testifying is not permitted. The chairperson of the committee may order the removal from this hearing by any member of Legislator Guåhan or the public audience who fails to observe proper decorum pursuant to the 38th Guam Legislature standing rules. Any violation of this general rule of conduct will result in immediate removal from this public hearing room. With that, we'll now proceed to hear testimony on Bill 266-38. I'll recognize the representatives from CQA, Customs and Quarantine, that are present. And of course, I'll recognize the Director, Chief Pareto. Thank you for being here. And either yourself or the individuals on the panel can introduce themselves. And then you can proceed with your opening statement. And I believe you may have a presentation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, Chief, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Senator. Senator Ada, Senator Gumatauto, our Chairman, Senator Guåhan, Senator Terlahi, and Senator Tello Taitagui. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here. My name is Pareto. I'm the Director for the Customs and Quarantine Agency. And I'd like to introduce my command staff and my admin people here. To my left is Captain John Rickman Yola, Executive Assistant. To his left is our ASO, Clarice Briggs. To her left is Colonel Tayama. And to her left also is Colonel Fairhorn. To my right is the Chief of Customs. And to his right is Colonel Joey Cruz. And to his right is Colonel Franklin Gutierrez. Thank you again for inviting us here. As I would like to mention that Guam Customs and Quarantine Agency proudly serves as Guam's first line of defense every single day. Our core responsibility is enforcement of both local and federal laws and regulations governing the movement of passengers, cargo, conveyances through our borders and designated ports of entry. At the same time, we are tasked with facilitating legitimate trade, commerce, and travel. We fulfill this dual role in close coordination with our local, federal, and private partners, continually working to strengthen this relationship to enhance Guam's border security structure. And at this time, I would like to start with my presentation. Next slide, please. The Guam Customs and Quarantine Agency stands as the frontline defender of Guam's borders, ensuring safety, security, and integrity of our community. Tasked with enforcing both local and federal laws, the agency monitors the movement of passengers, cargo, and conveyances across all 5 ports of entries, namely Antonio Wampat International Airport, Jose de Leon Guerrero Commercial Port, the Magaʹhågan Basin, the U.S. Postal Service main facility, and Anderson Air Force Base. Customs and Quarantine provides an array of critical border management services that protects our island from threats and risks detrimental to our community, while balancing its regulatory role to encourage legitimate trade and travel. As a key gateway to Guam, Greater Micronesia, and the rest of the world, the agency plays a vital role in safeguarding the region's supply chain and ensuring secure and efficient movement across our borders. Central to this mission are the dedicated men and women of the agency, both uniformed and civilian personnel who perform essential duties in executing our responsibilities and serving the public directly at all ports of entry. Through the collective efforts, an agency works to intercept and seize contraband, detain unsafe and prohibited substances, safeguard against tourism, provide biosecurity threats, apprehend violators of customs and applicable laws, and avert the spread of communicable diseases. In fulfilling this mission, Guam Customs and Quarantine Agency remains committed to protecting the people, our economy, and environment of Guam with vigilance, professionalism, and integrity. Next slide, please. This slide outlines the organizational structure of our agency, which is designed to support effective border protection, enforcement, and operational efficiency. At the core is our Inspection and Control Division, which manages border facilitation and security across all major ports of entry, including the airport, Anderson Air Force Base, Commercial Port, U.S. Post Office Facility, and the Magaʹhågan Basin. Providing overall leadership is the Director's Office, which sets strategic direction and ensures accountability through key roles such as the Chief of Customs, Internal Affairs, Public Information, and Executive Support Staff. Supporting our daily operation is the Administrative Office, responsible for fiscal management, including budgeting, human resources, procurement, payroll, revenue tracking through inspection fees, and accounts receivable. Our Special Enforcement Division focuses on criminal investigations and interdiction efforts. This includes specialized units such as the K-9 teams, the Contraband Enforcement Team, the Maritime Interdiction Task Force, the Biosecurity, Agricultural K-9 Task Force Section, and the Office of Intelligence, all working together to detect and prevent illegal activities. Finally, the Logistics and Support Division ensures operational readiness, managing technical support functions such as training, records management, research and development, and handling of property and evidence. Together, these divisions create a comprehensive framework that enables us to secure our borders while facilitating legitimate trade and travel. Next slide, please. Currently, we have 173 personnel, including 148 uniform officers, 11 trainees, and 14 support staff with 38 vacancies. Compared to our optimal staffing target of 300 uniform personnel and 30 staff support, we are operating at approximately 48% capacity. The largest gap remains in uniform personnel, where we are short by 140 officers. Support staff shortages increase the burden on officers to perform non-operational duties. Looking ahead, there is an additional concern Over 50% of the workforce has more than 20 years of service, which means we anticipate increased retirement and resignation starting in fiscal year 2027 and continuing the following year. This attrition is further impacted by recruitment efforts and other law enforcement agencies, which creates additional competition for experienced personnel. To address this, the agency is implementing retention initiatives, mentorship programs that pair seasoned staff with newer personnel to ensure continuity of service delivery. Overall, we are actively working to stabilize the workforce. Staffing level remains critically below target and requires sustained recruitment and retention effort. Next slide, please. Thank you. This slide illustrates CQ's current operation assets that assist our border enforcement interdiction and facilitation. CQA's vehicle fleet has a total of 47 in service, 23 or 50% of which are 10+ years or older. This supports a wide range of field operations, mobility needs, and response capabilities. For inspection technology, we operate one mobile ZVB X-ray system, which allows for scanning containers entering the Port Authority of Guam, along with 4 small handheld X-ray systems that provide mobility and flexibility for more targeted inspection deployable at all ports of entry. Canine assets, we have 12 operational drug detector dog canines actively deployed, with 5 undergoing training and 6 agricultural canines, which plays a critical role in identifying prohibited or harmful or regulated detrimental to our unique flora and fauna. To assist passengers processing, the agency is collaborating with GVB utilizing the electronic declaration form system for processing passengers, enhancing our detection and enforcement capabilities, as well as providing real-time data of travelers. And finally, our maritime operations are supported by 2 operational patrol boats, which are essential to coastal surveillance and interdiction efforts from external threats that may utilize the 70 miles of coastline. Collectively, these assets or tools provide an array of options to protect, detect, and respond effectively. Next slide, please. CQA continues to strengthen its operational capability to sustain investments in workforce development, specialized training, and leadership growth. This effort includes graduation of 29 new recruits, advance of 10 CQ trainees towards graduation in June of this year, 2026. Uniform domain training for 30 officers fully funded through the PSG capacity building is further enhanced to the Pacific Leadership Program for 15 officers, a 6-session cohort format provided by OCO free of charge, and certification of 2 additional canine trainers participating in the Australian Border Force Drug Detector Dog Program, the graduation of a new ACU canine handler team. Collectively, this initiative expands frontline readiness, strengthens specialized enforcement capabilities, and support a more capable and future-ready CQA workforce. Next slide, please. CQA has strengthened its interdiction and detection capabilities through the successful acquisition of critical inspection assets, including advanced X-ray screening system, handheld scanners, and narcotic substance analyzers. These accomplishments bolsters efforts to combat contraband smuggling while enhancing border security operation and improving the efficient flow of legitimate travel and trade. Next slide, please. This slide highlights the operational performance of CQA's inspection and control, the backbone of the agency, over a 7-month period, reflecting sustained high-volume activity across Guam's ports of entry. The division facilitates the safe and efficient processing of passengers, aircraft, vessels, and cargo while maintaining stronger border security enforcement outcomes. During this period, CQA cleared 6,814 aircraft and 420 ocean vessels, facilitated the entry of 612,389 passengers through the Guam International Airport and Anderson Air Force Base, processed approximately 17,810 cargo sea containers, and also processed 685 million pounds of break bulk shipments. 6.3 million pounds of air freight were also inspected and cleared. Collectively, these activities contributed to supporting the movement of over 2.7 billion in declared transactional value of commodities, underscoring CQA's critical role in protecting legitimate trade and travel while safeguarding Guam's borders and supporting our economic stability. Next slide. This slide summarizes many enforcement and regulatory outcomes of the agency's collective divisions from ICD, SAD, Biosecurity, K9, LSD unit from the beginning of FY26 to current, highlighting continued unified efforts to protect Guam's biosecurity, consumer safety, and intellectual property rights. During this period, CQA conducted agricultural interceptions totaling significant volumes of restricted or undeclared goods, including 1,500 pounds of meat, 28,948 pounds of fruits and vegetables, 1,738 pounds of plants, 4,223 pounds of wood products, and 4,000 pounds of miscellaneous agricultural items, and 23 pounds of seeds. These interceptions reflect ongoing vigilance in preventing the introduction of prohibited agricultural pests and diseases from entering our island with potential detrimental effects. In support of protecting potential agricultural diseases, CQA also conducted mitigation remedies such as fumigation, treatment, and release of compliant cargo, including 44,796 pounds of cod flour, 3,512 pounds of fruits and vegetables, and 503 pounds of live plants, ensuring safe market entry while maintaining regulatory standards. On the enforcement and compliance side, the agency investigated or is investigating 10 intellectual property rights, conducted 13 EPA/DOT regulatory investigations that included re-exporting dispositions for non-enterable determination, and processed 99 consumer protection cases, primarily due to non-compliance with food, drug, and cosmetic requirements or ban imports. These actions reinforce CQA's broader mandate to protect Guam's fragile flora and fauna consumers, enforce regulatory compliance, and support fair trade practices. Next slide, please. This slide highlights CQA's enforcement outcomes in combating illicit drug trafficking through Guam's ports of entry, reflecting sustained interdiction by the agency as a whole and the lead of our SAD, especially our investigation officers, K9 handlers, and partner agencies such as HSI, DEA, ATF, and U.S. Postal Inspection Service through the Guam Interdiction and Anti-Narcotics Trafficking of Giant. Since October 2025, significant quantities controlled substances were seized, including 376.85 pounds of methamphetamines, 27.25 pounds of marijuana, 3.4 pounds of cocaine, along with smaller quantities of synthetic pharmaceutical-based drugs, including 42 grams of MDA/ecstasy and 40.2 grams of illegal pharmaceuticals. This results underscore CQA's and our cooperative partners, both local and federal, who continue vigilance and operational effectiveness in disrupting the flow of dangerous drugs and safeguarding Guam's communities from the impact of illicit drug trafficking. Next slide, please. To continue with our border programs for FY27, the agency's budget requests for continued delivery and sustain of border security, inspection, and trade facilitation program is detailed above. For another year since COVID, CQA's funding is primarily supported through the general fund in the amount of 14.5 million and the Customs Agriculture Inspection Service, which is known as the Special Fund, at 7.7 million, derived from both passengers fee and cargo fees, also supplemented by federal funding of 1.8 for continued programmatic and operational capabilities. Together, general and special funds total 22.24 million, reflecting investment in safeguarding our ports of entry, enabling legitimate commerce, and protecting our community from both illicit contraband and detrimental commodities. including federal contributions. CQA's FY27 budget request is $24.11 million, ensuring continued capacity to strengthen inspection systems, advance regulatory enforcement, and modernize port of entry operations in support of Guam's security and economic resilience. Next slide, please. This slide represents a yearly comparison of monthly airport numbers that are subject to CQA passenger fee. This chart illustrates a trend in revenue throughput across fiscal year 23, 24, 25, and the first quarter of 26. Next slide, please. This budget slide stratifies CQA's FY27 for salaries, benefits, and overtime expenditures totaling $19,798,086, which represents approximately 82% of the agency's overall budget. This reflects the personnel costs to sustain our border security operation and programs needed to sustain continuous inspection and enforcement activities. The general fund allocation of $13.7 million supports core operational division, including the Director's Office, which is $1.9, Logistics and Support, which is $2.8, Airport Operation at $7.04, and Maritime Section at $1.26 million, ensuring uninterrupted passengers and cargo processing across CQA offices. CQA Special Funds allocation of $6.73 million supports trade facilitation, specialized enforcement, and capacity building units, including the air cargo section of $1.8 million, rock detector dog for $916,000, contraband enforcement team of $3.0 million, and for FY25 trainee cycle at $939, strengthening interdiction programs, capabilities, and workforce development. Collectively, this investment ensures sustained operational readiness, enhanced enforcement capacity, and continued modernization of CQA's border programs. Next slide, please. Continuing with the budget, this slide outlines FY27 contractual and rental expenditures, which supports operational readiness, facility usage, specialized enforcement activities, and work development across the agency inspection and control division. Contractual service is showing at $254,820. Contractual expenditures are fully supported by the special fund and include services essential to enforcement and training operation. This consists of cargo at $102,500, rock detector dog support, which is $18,000, contraband enforcement team of an additional $1,000, and FY27 training cycle of $133,320, in ensuring continuing capability development and operational support. Rental, total of $1.1, rental cost support, critical operations infrastructure across both funds. General fund allocation is $846,722, supports airport operation facilities, while special fund allocation at $289,094 supports the air cargo, and $274,380 and the dog detector unit at $14,714, ensuring adequate space facilities for inspection, enforcement, and operational readiness. Combined total and rent amounts to $1.3, which is 4.7% of our budget. Next slide, please. The final budget slide lists CQA's 27 expenditures for supplies, equipment, workers' compensation, miscellaneous costs, and other utilities, identifying secured federal granting or grant funding that supports critical operational readiness across the agency. This costs across the general fund, CQA special fund for sustaining capabilities across enforcement, inspection, and support functions. Operational supply and program support, CQA special fund at $397,265 supports key operational areas, including air cargo section at $146,205, rock detector dog unit at $36,000, and FY training cycle at $197,60, ensuring continuous workforce development and operational sustainment. General fund, $625,000, The 25% match for the federal DHS FEMA Port Security Grant at 1.8 provides critical support for equipment, procurement enhancement for inspection, and interdiction capabilities initiative, utilities, and operation sustainment. Additional support cost includes $45,750 under special fund for power and the telephone service for the drug detector dock unit, ensuring uninterrupted operational functionality. In total, this section of the budget amounts to about $1 million or 4.4 million of the budget. Once again, the allocation of all these budget categories contribute to the FY27 budget of $24,113,737,000 for personal operations, infrastructure, and federal partnership program that strengthens Guam's border interdiction priorities and support border facilitation services required for CQA's 24/7 border security trade facilitation mission. Next slide, please. This slide lists the breakdown of FY27's rental and facility-related costs supporting operation from the agency's headquarters, airport, cargo, maritime, and enforcement units. This cost ensures the sustained availability of needed working space required to execute border programs and facilitation operations. Facility rent and operational space, the largest cost driver is the airport terminal, about $2 million annually, reflecting the primarily operational footprint for passenger inspection and facilitation initiative. This is followed by air cargo at $546,000 annually, supporting air freight screening, inspection, and logistic functions. Additionally, facility costs include CQA headquarters, which is $234,000. Warehouse operation is $36,924,000. The drug detector unit facility at $29,436, and maritime common area fee (CAF) operation at $20,736. Support services and utilities operational necessity is further supported through essential services, including janitorial service at $91,176, power at $57,600, and the airport administrative fee of $100,000, ensuring functional readiness and compliance across the facilities. Recapping CQA's rental footprint, combined rental and facility-related costs amount to $3.1 million, which is approximately $260,967 on a monthly basis. Next slide, please. In addition to the $24 million in CQA's 27 budget requests, additional funding is requested from this body for the significant investment projects and procurements that will further improve the agency's efficiency and effectiveness with our core mission mandates. The Customs and Quarantine Agency submits the following FY27 budget requests to strengthen operational readiness, modernize critical infrastructure, enhance workforce retention, and enforcement capabilities across all mission areas. CQA has secured a $1.3 million towards the Asakruda Modernization Project to be provided by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, known as UNTAC, as passed into law earlier this month. However, an additional $1 million is requested to offset anticipated inflammatory costs increase since the original minimum 24 months project cost provided by UNTAC was developed in 2024, and a newer version of Asakruda Gen 5 was just launched. Planning, negotiation, and project modernization are anticipated to commence between the late FY26 and the first quarter of FY27. $800,000 is requested to address critical communication vulnerabilities exposed during Super Typhoon Sinlaku. CQA requests funding for the acquisition of interoperable handheld radios capable of seamless communication with the Guam Police Department under the SmartNet system. The event underscores significant deficiencies in both internal and external communication resilience during large-scale emergency and disaster response operation. CQA has also secured a $2 million U.S. Department of Transportation grant. However, updated architectural engineering A&E costs estimated for the project have increased to $2.7 million, resulting in $700,000 funding gap that is being sought to begin. Any residual funds if realized, will be directed toward the additional facility improvement requirements or other technical construction needs. To support workforce stability and reduce attrition to local and federal agencies, CQA requests $400,000 for non-competitive promotion and career advancement initiative for FY27. This initiative establishes a structured career progression pathway for CQ1 to CQ3 after 3 years of satisfactory performance in each rank. This aligns with Peace Officer Standards Post principles and best practices for retention and professional development. Facility and operational modernization requests. CQA further requests funding for the following critical operational needs: $200,000 for renovation or workspace improvement at the Maritime Office located at the O Horizon building at the Port Authority of Guam, $180,000 for the acquisition of 3 new law enforcement SUVs to initiate phase replacement of aging fleet, and $140,000 for procurement of 2 cargo vans to support secure transport of detained goods, ensuring protection of environmental exposure handling and transfer operation, $100,000 for preventive maintenance and repair service contract for the existing X-ray scanning equipment to ensure operational continuity and equipment reliability for 1 year, $75,000 for implementation of a centralized case management system to standardize reporting, improving data integration, and enhance agency-wide information sharing. And lastly, $42,000 for replacement of an obsolete service pistol, some of which are nearly 25 years old, to ensure standardization, safety, and reliability across all sworn personnel. Statutory allocation requests. Finally, CQA respectfully reiterates its request for the allocation of 20% of total use tax collection per fiscal year. As authorized by statute, current track distributions are as follows. For FY24, 1.4, for FY25, 1.1, and for FY26, 661,528. These resources are critical to sustaining CQA statutory mandates and ensuring continued modernization, organizational readiness, and enforcement effectiveness in support of border security and public safety. Next slide, please. For FY27 priority, initiative, and investment, personnel, CQA will support workforce strengthening through the recruitment and graduation of 20 Customs and Quarantine trainees to enhance operational staffing level and maintain effective coverage across enforcement and inspection functions. Address the need to provide more uniform presence at the Port Authority on a 24-hour basis. Technology. CQA initiates an in-country implementation phase of the ASCUDA work system, advancing modernization of customs administration processes, improving trade, facilitation, strengthening revenue collection, efficiency through digital transformation. And lastly, the finance and revenue. CQA will implement much needed adjustment to the passenger and cargo fee rates to better align cost recovery mechanism with current operational demands, implement tariff pressures and service delivery requirements, ensuring sustainability of agency revenue streams, and thereby reducing reliance on the general fund. Equipment. CQA will enhance operational capabilities through deployment of the baggage X-ray scanner into the airport operations, strengthening inspection and interdiction capabilities at the border, establishment and development of a CQA drone unit to support surveillance, reconnaissance, operational monitoring in both land and maritime environments. Infrastructure. CQA will issue an invitation for bid for a mobile command post, strengthening incident response coordination, field command capability, and emergency operational readiness during disaster response and enforcement station. Next slide, please. We formally submit this budget and the accompanying information for your review, consideration, and appropriate action. We are prepared to address any question you may have, and thank you for your attendance at the CQA budget hearing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Si tu
We're
smasi,
open
Director
for
Pareto.
questions.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I want to begin by thanking you for appearing for the pre-budget meeting with Office of Finance and Budget and your team that came to discuss that, which allows us further information to prepare for your budget for the final, going into the final bill that will be substituted before it goes to the floor. I want to also thank your chairman, to which I am the vice chair as well, for having significant oversight hearings in the last year to year and a half on customs and quarantine over a number of different subject matters, to include the recent passage and sign into law of a public law that is going to greatly, we believe, enhance customs and quarantine's capabilities going forward, and we'll have that discussion as things unfold. Obviously, you've put some of those requests in your budget in anticipation of the future and what the future holds. I want to let the senators that have joined us today, this has been how we are going to complete this budget cycle going forward, concentrating on the budget because of the fact that, as I said, there have been extensive oversights and there will be oversights afterwards to continue discussions with customs on their initiatives going forward. We believe there's plenty of information in terms of the operations of customs and quarantine. And today what we want to answer is a simple question. What are the needs of customs and quarantine, and how can we get as close to possible as meeting those needs and requests going forward into the fiscal year 2027 budget? So we do have the implementation of our 5-minute clock, and so I encourage my colleagues to please concentrate on issues associated with the budget. Thank you, Chief, once again and your team for the presentation. We can still also once again take away from what you've put in front of us under oath as the current status of customs and quarantine, and that's on the record. I don't think we have to ask a bunch of questions about that. Otherwise, that's up to the senators on how they want to use their time. But I encourage everyone to use it very clearly for the budget process. So with that, I will turn it over to the chairman of Customs, Senator Jesse Guåhan. Senator?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, thank you very much for that, and also for mentioning the fact that we've had numerous, of course, oversight hearings regarding CQA. But good afternoon, Mr. Director, and your team there. Yes, we've had quite a few of the oversight gatherings in regards to CQA and their needs. But I want to concentrate this afternoon because one of the things we haven't discussed, and this just came out actually after last oversight, is the GAO report that came out. And so some of the things that you've addressed here, they've addressed. And I want my colleagues to know again that if we don't address these situations, the GAO report has already come out now, right? So I want to get your point of view because we haven't had an opportunity to talk about this. But, you know, right off the bat, so let me ask this question. GAO, the Government Accounting Office, outlines the risk of federalization, including higher costs with tariffs and potential security gaps. What is CQA's official position on that GAO report or that study that came out?
Well, when we responded to GAO's last submission for information, they asked us there were three main areas that they identified, three options. The first one is federalization, hybrid, or status quo. And we made it clear from our standpoint, coming from the Customs and Quarantine Agency, that status quo is our option.
Okay. Now that being said, again, if CBP were to assume control, how would Guam address concerns in the drug interdiction and could weaken our domestic shipments? And likewise with that, if it was federalized, what does Guam lose then? What does the federalization mean for the loss of Guam's designation?
Well, if they take and federalize CQA, then that means that we have no authority with respect to goods coming in from the U.S.
Okay, but is federalization okay as well? Do we lose the tax benefits then go ahead.
Senator John Rick Mendiola, with the Director's Office. What does Guam chance to lose is we will be included under the customs territory of the U.S. So all goods coming from the U.S. will be treated just like goods moving from California to New York, where it is not under any state control as far as clearances is concerned. We will now be subject to duties and tariffs, potentially, more than likely, for goods that are coming in from other areas, which represents about 30 to 40% of our goods coming into Guam from other foreign countries besides the U.S. So there's the potential of us paying duties and taxes. One thing that we would need to explore, but the possibilities include our fuel. We got our fuel from Singapore. Those may be subject to duties and tariffs if we fall under the customs territory of the United States.
Okay. Chief Harris, you want?
Good afternoon, Senators. My name is Vincent Perez. I'm the Chief of Customs. So the other thing to think about is strategically, what happens to our authority at the border? So right now we have authority to be able to protect the island and the people and our resources because of our current status quo. If we become federalized, a lot of the authority that we have will be reduced or diminished as far as being able to conduct inspections and to be able to intercept certain things. If you take a look at us becoming part of the federal umbrella, we lose that authority. In other words, things coming in, like Captain John Rick was mentioning, would be considered domestic. So when you consider things coming in domestically, but yet currently the Guam Customs and Quarantine Agency is faced with the situation of battling narcotics, smuggling, coming in from different areas of the United States. What that means potentially is that you open the door and it's free and clear. And then the other one, of course, is tariffs. That's the other thing. The United States Department of Agriculture, for example, has vested the authority of plant protection and quarantine to the government of Guam, most especially through our Guam Customs and Quarantine officers. A lot of the things that you see us enforce is also through federal and local collaboration. So many of the authorities that we have, and I'll just sum it up in one sentence, we're going to lose control and the authority of protecting the border to the federal government. And who is to say that the federal government at this point in time is well suited to protect the population of Guam, which is what, 150 to 170,000 people, plus protecting our resources. If you look at the United States right now, between the border of Mexico and the United States, since the last administration, there was a free flow of people coming in and out, mostly in. And so we're saying we're going to ride that same system, ride the same train, because we think that if we go into the new system that we're going to be well versed at protecting because we have a current system using the federal government. I suspect that if we were fully funded and given the resources that we need, the status quo would be greatly improved. Our issues with working at the border is several. Of course, we have the challenge of attrition. We lose many of our officers to federal employment, most especially in the area of either CBP or some other special resident agent type operation dealing with federal service. And many of our officers who leave the agency are recruited at the GS-9 level. But if you take a look at what our officers are making as trainees, and then when they graduate, it's like maybe around $21,000 to $24,000 annually. And so we're working right now with the resources we have to be able to get into that next level. And part of the correction or the strategic plan, at least for the agency, is we want to wean ourselves off of that annual average of $14 million that the general fund has seen fit to give us since COVID-19 hit us hard. So what does that mean? We need to start taking a look at our finances. We need to start working smarter. We need to develop the fees and the penalties and anything that's appropriate. Our service charges have not been changed in over 13 years. But going back to your question, Senator, if we were to move towards a system of federal control, we would lose absolute authority at the border.
Okay, now that being said, what immediate reforms then should we look at to implement almost ASAP versus a progressive reform over the years to curtail maybe a continuous dialogue for such federalization to happen?
So the one good thing about the GAO report is that it identified the fact that even if it didn't focus in on the Guam Customs and Quarantine Agency becoming an independent agency with full authority to be able to collect and do things on its own, it did recognize the fact that we could, using the system we currently have, to address the issues. Now, if we were able to address financially our capability to not just collect, but to fund our operations, that would reduce the reliance on the government, on the general fund. And then the other thing that we need to look at strategically is legislation and regulations that is necessary for us to be able to go to the next level. Part of that entails using the system of the automated system for customs data, which is the ASACUDA. Guam is one of the very few entities left over in the world, I suspect, that does not have its own automated customs system. And for years, we've been talking about trying to get out of this rut. So certain things have to happen, and we're already working to that end. So we're working on changing legislation. We're tightening up regulations as it deals with the violations. We're creating tables of penalties. And then the other thing is that we're looking at, hopefully, retention incentives for our officers so that instead of graduating in December of 2025 and then 2 weeks later joining the federal government, we would do a lot more for enticing our officers to be able to just stay. So right now, as we sit and speak, we're not twiddling our thumbs. We are looking at trying to work with anyone and everyone, to include the federal government, to build the capacity of where we need to be. But we do recognize that we have a responsibility to the people of Guam to be able to protect our island, because it is our island, and that's where we're headed. So give us the capability, give us the resources, and help us with legislation to be able to build the capacity, help us address our fee structures and our service charges. And I bet in the next few years, we would go more than halfway towards getting that course of action as part of a solution.
Now, Chief Harris, let me ask this. You said eventually you guys want to wean yourself off from the general fund, basically, right? Which would entail, okay, a fee structure that you guys will generate and implement and all that. When was the last time the fee structure was, implemented, or how long has this fee been?
So the authority is given to the director to conduct periodic review. So the last time we had a rate adjustment was well over 13 years ago. I think we're already heading into our 14th year. And normally what happens is that every year you're expected to see your budget need to grow. But what we've been doing is that every time we lose people and we get that amount, we don't do a recruitment, so it looks on the paper like we're meeting our budgetary needs, but it's been well over 13 years. And so one of the things that we're looking at doing is coming up with a fee structure that has got a 4-year phased period, so that, you know, we're not just going to be throwing a big, huge chunk and then people are saying the utility to travel to Guam is not worth it. Even though it's been well over 13 years, the GAO report also identifies the fact that it's been some time since we've done this. So hopefully we're able to work hand in hand with the reports that identify some of our shortcomings, but it also gives us an opportunity to be able to address some of the needs of rate changes and legislation that we need. And if you really peel back the layer of the onion, we actually have the capability. It's just being able to really articulate what we need as far as like what type of legislation we're going to need. And I go back to, if we go back to the federal government and they take over, how do you know that they're going to do a better job of protecting our island than we are? We are the ones that are passionate about what we do, and why we do what we do to protect us.
Yeah, you know, Chief, also the GAO report also shows that increasing passenger fees could reduce, of course, visitor arrivals and tourism spending. Again, but the reality is, right, should you wean yourselves off of the general fund, that will have to be the reality. So how, again, what strategy do you guys have, again, to, you know, to wean yourselves off of that? And actually, the good thing at this point is I have oversight of tourism as well.
Right.
So we know that, you know, on one hand we need to do this, on the other hand we know that that it's, you know, it's poisonous as well, right? To do as such, but. And I would like to get a roundtable, of course, with CQA and the Guam Visitors Bureau folks as well, to see how we can move forward with this. Again, to give you the tools, as we did with Escuda, to be able to move on, you know, and how do we, again, continue to move on without hurting the industry and without, again, having a negative impact on our tourism arrivals. So it has to be a coordinated situation with the airport, you know, yourselves and the Guam Visitors Bureau to be able to move forward with an eventual wean off the general fund.
Right.
And with that, Mr. Chairman, you know, I got more, but we'll do that in other oversights as well. But
Senator Guåhan, if I could
Yes,
just
sir.
add, you asked what are the important things, and you know, the administration and even this body and previous bodies before, we have been making the two critical things that we need over the agency is modernization, but not really. Now we're moving with automation, but modernization of our revenue structure and modernization of our statutory authorities, which have been over 50 years old.
Sure.
I would always say since the typewriter period. What's important, and we should have the discussions, because as we modernize, we can improve our efficiencies and effectiveness with our border operations. And having that as well as automation coming simultaneously, we can use that as benchmarks to measure our effectiveness and look for other cost recovery and more efficient tools that are out there to improve our facilitation and detection services.
Well, no, and I totally agree. I mean, again, with the Escuda system in place, and once it's implemented, you know, I speaking with the chair of OFB, and said, you know, once it's implemented and we start collecting again the leakage that has been out there, I mean, a good portion of that has to go back to CQA to be able to function, you know, 100%, and you should, you know, we do it with the courts when they do the traffic tickets and all that, right? So what you collect there, you should get a good portion of that to continue with your operations and even take it to the next level. So I'm looking forward to that, and I want to thank the body and thank you guys again for putting that together, and we were able to get it across the finish line. We just took it over the finish line. You guys really did that. You and Bureau of Planning were the ones that really put that together. But thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator, and definitely, I mean, there's no question. I mean, you've done the work, you've put in what you needed to do. You should be the first at the table to recoup, the associated recovery from that, and we'll do that. That's why I said as things go forward. But for this budget cycle, we'll make sure you got what you need going forward. Senator Guåhan, you recognize?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Customs, for being with us this afternoon. I'm not going to beat up this dead horse about the GAO report. I think, and I agree with Senator Guåhan and your chair, we will have to go to another meeting and look at the future. It could be 4 years, and beyond that, I think that from a credibility standpoint, your credibility is actually under threat. And the credibility of this government is also being put to question. So I just want you all to understand that, and I think because I think all of our opinions are different on what would be the future of Guam Customs and Quarantine Agency. I have a couple of questions. Was good to hear and see a little bit about the satellite inspection holding and sterile facility that you mentioned. I think it's like 3 pages near the end of the actual presentation. Now, 4 months after the enactment of Public Law 38-86, which gave you an additional 2 years to develop that facility, where are we on this project? How does CQA's recent request for federal funding, through the assistance of Congressman Moylan, about $1.3 million for this facility and the program, and another $6 million getting in there, has either request been approved or awarded, and if so, how are those funds reflected in your FY2027 budget requests? Do we see it anywhere in there? I know it's not 700,000, or is it?
Colonel Joey Cruz, Logistics and Support Division. I believe you're talking about the container inspection facility, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, so that facility, what had happened is we have the A&E through a merit funding. That's through Department of Transportation. That's $2 million. And the last, we had the bid go out, and DPW with our team went out, and the bid came back $700,000 over the $2 million mark. So it was not a grant from the congressman.
So then again, let me ask again, is the 700,000 you're mentioning on the report, are you needing that to get this thing kickstarted, or what are we talking about here?
It's on top of the $2 million, yes, sir. So
we budget it, and this thing should let loose, and the bid can move forward. So what you're saying on the record today?
Yes, the bid is at $2,600,000.
No, I'll say it again. If we add 700,000, that means the bid can move forward on this project that we added extension for.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you for that. Let me just jump right into the equipment on your budget. Excluding the 9 recently purchased vehicles assigned to the director's office, how many of your agency vehicles are operable, or inoperable, I should say? How many days, weeks, or months have the vehicles been inoperable? And how specifically have these inoperable vehicles impacted your enforcement operations? And when will these vehicles be available for use across the different sections of Guam Customs?
The vehicles that were identified on my testimony, I did mention 47. Those are operable vehicles. But some of those vehicles are from the lesser program, and their lifespan is probably less than 2 years that we need to replace them. So that's why we had to put those things in.
So on your budget, you have for equipment, you're authorized 60,000. Is that even enough to take care of your fleet?
60,000. What's the budget for vehicle?
Senator Guåhan, we did say we have 47 operable vehicles. I'm just looking at our list here. We have about 8 vehicles that are inoperable, but are more than 10 years old, and they were obtained through the LESO program. So they were used vehicles that Customs had the opportunity to acquire. We used it as long as we could, but now they're inoperable, and we're at the point where we have to they make the decision, since they're over 10 years older and used, should we still keep it within our fleet? Because you could be throwing money down the pipe, and it's only for
and that's what I was kind of alluding to.
Yeah.
I mean, are we going to spend $60,000 just to keep vehicles that are not on the road if we can just get rid of them and move forward, right? I mean, because why spend that kind of money?
I think the money for our vehicles that we would have will be for the ones that we're more confident with, that have a longer durability and lesser problems. So it will be an operational decision for us to make the determination that the inoperable vehicles that we have that are 10 years old, are old already, and are from a used car, from a used fleet, is it worth the financial resources to keep them operable?
Yeah, thank you for that. Now, a local newspaper reported last October that an establishment in Dededo months earlier, they got in trouble, I guess, for allegedly selling unapproved or misbranded drugs. Through the news report, we were informed that if a compound is truly intended for research purposes and not to be used by people as a drug, it is not regulated by the Food and Drug Administration. And individuals who do in fact sell drugs sometimes falsely claim that their products are intended for research purposes only, in an apparent attempt to evade regulatory authorities or law enforcement. Recognizing that Guam Public Health relies heavily on CQA to identify and intercept illegal food, drugs, cosmetics, and medical devices, what portion of the 39 reported public health violations were tied to 21 U.S.C. Section 331, which prohibits the manufacturing and introduction or delivery for introduction into interstate commerce of any food, drug, device, tobacco product, or cosmetic that is adulterated or misbranded? And does your does your fiscal year 2027 budget provide adequate resources to help the coordination in enforcement actions with Guam Public Health? I know you mentioned in your presentation, on page 9, I think it was, you had got the 407 pounds of drugs, page 8, 44 tons of other, so I'm trying to bring this all together from a public health point of view. Does anybody want to try that crack at it?
Senator, I can get you that information. Send me that question again, and I'll put it together and I'll send it to your office.
Yeah, I think it's important for us as to make sure that if you are helping public health, that the
Yes, sir.
resources that you would need are available to you. Obviously, they have an activity that they need to enforce, but if you're helping, we just want to make sure, or at least I do, that you have the resources to be able to support that law enforcement activity. Go ahead, Nick.
If I could just add to that, our agency is coordinating with public health relative to any seizures regarding those type of commodities, but we also have other items such as marijuana or THC, CBD, and all of that stuff, and it gets very, very, there's a lot of weeds and all of that, right? So we're working with the Drug Enforcement Administration here, because those type of regulations would fall under 21 U.S.C. under a federal code.
All right, thank you for that. And Mr. Chair, again, I do echo the sentiment of the Chair of Customs that coming back on this GAO report is key. But again, I appreciate all of your guys' input today for your budget hearing, and just will work with your chair to make sure we get this all taken care of for you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the time.
Sidus Masi, Senator Gumtauto, and I'm sure Customs would be excited to come and also present on the details of the GAO report, and perhaps we could include some of your questions along the line of enforcement at the border on the public health issues and commodities being brought in. Vice Speaker Ada and Vice Speaker of the committee, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to Director Prieto and the team for coming down. Just a couple of questions that I had and the first question is, did Customs hire any personnel under the ARP funding? None?
No.
No one was?
No, we didn't hire anybody.
Okay, that's good to know. And that way, we just wanted to know whether those personnel moved from ARP into the general fund appropriation. You know, I see here on overtime, you're requesting for 113,596. What is this overtime? How does this calculate overtime for? Is this for after hours or?
Yes, actually, the overtime is to provide the additional services that we need to support the airport. In case the airport needs additional manpower, then we allow people to come in and provide that services. In addition to that, the overtime is also geared towards the Special Enforcement Division, who does investigative work, control deliveries after working hours.
So how does the off-duty service fee work into overtime, or is that a different fee, separate and apart from?
The carrier off-duty service program is different from government overtime. That's here. It is paid by the consignee, the importer, who requests for custom services after our normal business, after hours. So they would pay it. DOA facilitates the payments, and then from there they prepare payments to each individual officer who work it during that particular pay period.
So what happens if the individual or the vendor or whoever it is does not pay that overtime fee? What happens then? How does the officers get compensated?
If there's a situation, before what we do initially, before we entertain any requests, we inform the requester that they're obligated to pay the overtime services of the officer, or they can wait until we open and we can service them there. Before we get to that point, we ensure that they understand that they're responsible for paying for the services of the assigned off-duty officer. In the event that it's not paid, what we will do is that we can, one, not release their shipment, or two, release their shipment and not entertain any other overtime requests after that. From there, we can work within our agency to find some means of compensation for that officer. But we do our very best to ensure, before we give the assignment, that the requester has the ability to pay for the services.
How about for vessels that come in unannounced at the port, that whether it be the marina or the port, that they come in unannounced, and how are they charged, and how do they process their fees?
Senator, if a vessel comes in at the port and the port is closed, for example,
Or let's say
their
the marina,
operation is 8 to 5 and the vessel comes in at 10 at night, then the owner of that vessel is responsible to pay that services.
Okay.
But we will clear them. Regardless if we will assign officers to do the inspection clearance service.
Okay. And then
Especially for arrivals such as that particular case.
Okay. So then also I believe Customs had port funding, grant funding for port equipment. And it's our understanding that those equipment are being utilized at other sections and not at the port. Is this accurate? 2022, 2023 port grants intended strictly for port operations is being used in other sections.
If that particular equipment is identified through a federal grant for the port security, then it should be used at the port. That's what it dictates this. I'm not too sure whether we're doing that.
So we're not utilizing any vehicles or any equipment that is strictly for port use anywhere else?
We have multiple sections that operate at the port, other than just the maritime section. So there's our drug detector dog unit, for example, or our contraband enforcement team that are conducting operations at the port. So those units would be considered as part of the port operations.
I see.
If, Senator, like what Colonel Gutierrez mentioned, the maritime operation is dynamic. It's not just situated fixed down at the commercial port. It expands to the Magaʹhågan Basin, the Agate Marina, our CFS locations located around the island. So those are all maritime-related activities, all within the maritime domain, to include even our offices and our support personnel that are up at our air cargo facility. Our air cargo facility also has the ability to conduct maritime inspections at our bay there. And if we need to position those equipments for maritime, it is maritime-related.
Okay, that's great to hear. So when would when would Customs be doing another review of your fee schedule?
We are currently reviewing the fees for the adjustment, and I met with the governor and explained to the governor the importance of initiating the fee, and she has given me the clearance to work on it and see what we can come up with, and I'll let the chief handle the process that's going on right now.
Right, yeah, so thank you very much. So currently, we've already met as a committee for a rate adjustment, recognizing the fact that it's been well over 13 years, but also appreciating that you can't just take a fee or a service charge and implement it en masse as one big chunk. So our plan is to meet with all the stakeholders and to take into consideration the input. And then we've developed an interim 4-year implementation for the fee or the service charge for both the maritime and air cargo and the passenger inspection fee. And like I said, recognizing the fact that you need to ensure that the public and the users of the service charge understand, number one, why we're doing this and how much it's going to impact them and what's the return for their money, right, that you're paying for every ticket or for every article that you import. And in line with that, we're also taking a look at other areas that we could implement certain fees to help us alleviate some of the stresses on increasing our fees. So if you're looking currently like $8.29 for passenger movement, I believe we might be one of the cheapest rates in our region. And so 13 years with very little movement as far as like increases in technology or personnel, equipment, we need to address. But yes, we're looking at ways of mitigating it. One of the things we also came to understand was that if you're looking at a $14 million average that the general fund is offsetting, and we implement this 4 years phased in implementation for the service charge, at the end of the 4th year, based on our forecast, we will drop the $14 million offset down to about $4 million, which means that we still have general fund reliance. So we got to take a look internally at our operations and take a look around and see what else can we do. You know, in the Air Force, they say work smarter, not harder. So if there's ways that we can reduce the number of personnel, which is a big ticket cost item, and use technology, for example, we are looking at that. But in order for us to get there, we need to invest heavily. And we don't have that money to invest because every year it's like over 80% of our budget is personnel cost. And so with that being said, you want to make sure you entice retention. We've been fighting retention for years. And so if we're able to address that and then also take a look at modernizing our fees, which would not just go a long way towards helping the officers, but also investing in our infrastructure and our technology. But like I said, we want to make sure we meet with all the stakeholders and we understand the perspective because you can't just arbitrarily insert a fee and then expect everybody to be happy. But on the trade-off, the public has to understand that it's not a service charge that that it affects the traveling public, or it affects the importers, and so that's the reason why we have to make sure we do a good job of ensuring that every penny is accounted for in moving forward.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that perhaps maybe something to look at in the future is where the law can be amended to say every 5 years that, you know, a certain percentage, like 2% increase would be done, so that it automatically adjusts the fees every 5 years versus we waited, what, 13, 14 years now, and there's still no adjustment. And looking at doing it that way, it doesn't put the burden on Customs and Quarantine or the legislature. It's just something that automatically goes into effect. So something we can look at again and see how is it that we can make that more palatable for the people, knowing that they'll be prepared, knowing that in 5 years there'll be a 2% increase versus not knowing what to expect in the future. So thank you for that input, and hopefully that we can get with the chairman and see how is it that we can make things work better, and like you said, you know, work smarter and not harder for both the Customs and Quarantine folks and all the work that you guys do up there. So thank you for that, Chief. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the time to speak.
Tujusmasi Vice Speaker Ada, as well as Vice Chair of the committee. Senator Talai, you recognized.
Tujusmasi, thank you to all of you for your presentation and for your work. I guess if I could just follow up on a couple of things. So you talked about you're 48% understaffed, that you should have 300 officers. You currently have 148. I think in February you said something very similar, right? 150 officers then, 282 needed. But the request doesn't cover that, right? Your request is almost status quo. It looks almost exactly status quo, except for a 1.875 federal.
Yes,
What is that for?
that's the federal grant.
What is it going to do?
That's the port security grant.
Yeah, what will it do?
It provides resources and equipment to the port maritime office
To do what?
to procure equipment.
The 20, you want to
Yeah,
answer?
I mean, from top of my head, I know there was like radios, some radios that we're trying to get, some support for their X-ray equipment, CCTV cameras, things that are to fill some gaps in our operations down there.
All right, will that grant help us with interdiction of drugs at the port, you think?
Yes, Senator.
All right. And so with the 48% understaffed of officers, you said you have 38 vacancies, and then there are 11 trainees, and you expect 10 to graduate in June? Is that 11 plus 10?
Yes, we're looking at graduating. I think the 16th cycle is scheduled to graduate in June. I think it's the second week of June. That's the additional 10 that we're going to get. And then for FY26, we do have a recruitment of an additional 21, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so 21 officers.
All right. Is that like not started yet? Or?
No, we have, DOA has initiated the announcement in January.
Okay.
We are still waiting for them to provide us a listing so that we can start recruitment.
All right, but you can fund up to 21. All right, that's great. So you've got 38 vacancies. You're going to get 10 in June, hopefully. If they graduate, you still have money to fund 21 more.
Yes.
And then in FY27, there's 1.269 million for FY27 training. Is that going to be?
I think we're looking at 20 for FY27.
Additional.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I wanted to just ask, you know, the request is not for anything more than last year. And so are we going to end up with the same number of officers as last year? If you talk about we got these recruits, yet, you have some retirees as well.
Okay, so thank you, Senator. So every year we have people that retire, and then every year we also have members of our officer corps, to include the trainees who decide to leave. We've had some leave for the fire department. I know that a couple of them had left for the police department, which just highlights the need for us to be able to address retention and implement initiatives that will help us to stem the bleeding, if you will. And so every year we contend with and I know that it looks like our numbers have not really changed. And if you look at where we need to be, around 300, there are certain gaps in our operation that we're trying to fill, and the only way to fill them is by recruitment. I'll use the example of like Anderson Air Force Base. Many years ago, we used to man it with a group of 9 people, 24/7. It got to a point where our numbers went down so bad that we ended up reducing from 9 down to 1 or 2 people being sent up per shift to address it. And then now in other areas, we would like to also take a look at the area of 24/7 operations down at the port. But you have to address the biggest fire first. And so the biggest fire is currently at the airport, meaning we're short of personnel. And so we're at the point right now with this cycle that should be graduating in June to be able to address the shortfalls at the airport. Based on operational need, we need around 28 officers on any given shift to be able to operate and entertain all the different areas of customs enforcement, to include sending people up to Anderson. And then we also have other areas within the agency like intelligence and narcotics enforcement and investigations. What we're doing is we're prioritizing where they need. And since we're addressing the airport, by the time we get the next cycle in, people have retired. And so we're looking at a young corps of officers with very little institutional knowledge, which is why we're looking at mentorship. But really, if we're able to, we will address the needs and hopefully get to a point where we have enough institutional knowledge, enough personnel to be able to address all the different areas. There's a lot of things that we like to do, but as I said earlier, we want to work smarter using technology, using risk assessment modules and modernization to be able to help us in identifying the bad people from the good. Honestly, if I had my way, I wish I had a crystal ball to only identify those that we need to see. I want to see the drug dealers, the ones that violate any of our laws as it relates to agriculture or biosecurity or public health, and everybody else go free. It's just kind of difficult working with the system we have in which we're always losing people, and then institutional knowledge needs to be built up from the ground up. And a lot of these guys here were all at 30-some years of service. And so what happens to the leadership once we leave is that the next group, we've already had many instances where we sat with the last 3 cycles and we said, you guys are going to be the new core of leaders. And they don't believe it. But now some of them are already being, not by choice, they're being placed in situations where they have to be the leader and they have to make it, to understand that, choices have consequences, and you need to learn how to mentor your replacement.
All right, well, I feel for you because it's been repeated that you've said you're understaffed, and we have to account for, retirements and all of that. You deserve to do that too. But so I just want to know, if we're so understaffed and we know that, and we know we're going to account for those, our budget to be status quo just kind of doesn't make sense to me. That's my take on it. But the airport rent is $2 million. Your revenue from, it looks like passenger fees, or it says revenue, is $890,000. So that's including passenger fees, not even half of what your airport rent is. Is that correct? Yes. And there's a $100,000 GIAA admin fee. What's that for?
That is their processing fee that has been well established since the beginning of the program over 30 years ago. It's a percentage for them to collect the fee from the airlines. It's based on the way the payment is made and the way it's structured, where it's not paid directly to the government. It is paid it's the airport authority collects it. So obviously there is an administrative fee that is attached to the collection of that fee from the airlines.
All right, I know I always ask you this, but now the law has even changed for the airport where they have the ability to get huge profits from their leases. And are you able to negotiate with them that you can go rent free at the airport? I'm just putting that out there, all right? I have a few more questions. There's 2.5 million in miscellaneous. What is that for? That's an increase of 2.5 million in miscellaneous.
I think, Senator, that accounts for 625,000. That's where you're looking for the miscellaneous, right?
Yeah, 2.5 million
So-
increase from last year.
Yeah, that's for the 25% co-share match, federal grant match
For what?
for the port security grant.
For that other 1.8 grant?
Yes, yes.
Okay, perfect. And then it says that you're going to increase FTEs by 30. Is that right?
Clarice Briggs, ASO. We're going to increase by 20
Just the
for
recruits?
fiscal year 27.
Oh, is that the 21 recruits? Or is
That 21 is for fiscal year 26. Then
Okay.
we're requesting 20 for 27.
And what will that be? Officers or not?
Trainees.
I mean, yeah.
Will eventually be
But-
officers.
30?
So total of 31.
Okay, I thought we said FY26 was you're going to get 10 in June, plus you've got money for 21 more.
We have 10 currently on board going through the cycle.
Okay.
We have budgeted to hire for additional 21 for this year.
Oh, okay, so the 1.269 million for FY27 training is for 30 new?
20.
Oh, 20. Sorry, so what's the 30 FTEs additional for FY27?
Was it? It's a backfilling of the officers.
Like promotion?
When they leave.
Pardon?
When officers leave, we backfill it as a trainee.
So it has that effect where it'll open up new positions. So we don't eliminate the position. We promote. We're doing a good job in promoting and opening those. Remaining the vacant positions are filled. So thus that allows that vacancy to remain in place, and then we backfill it through the recruitment of new trainees.
All right. Why did the office space rent under operations decrease by 1.7 million compared to last fiscal year?
Senator, what line item are you looking at there? It's just for reference.
I don't know, sorry. I'd have to get back to you on that. Do you think your rent is the same? Or did it decrease?
If we could come back with you about
right.
if the rent remained the same, or if there's any decrease or increase in rent for this coming FY. Can we get back with you on those numbers so that we can check with the previous numbers from last year?
All right, I see my time keeps going down, but just like two more questions. One is there's a workload output on your budget request, page 17, which includes 300 inquiries for public assistance as a level of accomplishment in FY25, and anticipated level for FY26, and projected level for FY27. Can you just, what does that mean, inquiries? What are we expecting there? I would expect this is like part of performance-based if we applied that to customs.
Senator, could you
The
repeat
last
that
one,
question?
public assistance, see the last line on the workload, public assistance, it says, sorry, 300 inquiries. The chart, workload output, page 17. Do you have that? Well, all right.
Senator, if we can get back with you on that
Sure.
information.
Okay,
Thank
then you put in this page in the PowerPoint, it says 3.64 million total funding requests, like additional requests above the current budget level that the governor submitted? Is that what that means?
Yes.
In addition to the governor's request?
Thank you, Senator.
All right. And
Appreciate it.
can I just ask my last final question is what changes can the people of Guam expect at the port, if any, during fiscal year 27 from customs, inspections or otherwise?
What we're looking at the port, dear Senator, is that the people can expect that we're increasing the manpower down at the port with the additional FTEs that's going to be graduating this June. Part of that too will be used down at the port to enhance the manpower allocation at the port. In addition to that, we have also mentioned that we have an additional K9 dog detector dogs that we have acquired, an additional handlers, and K9s will also be used down at the port for inspection purposes.
Will that increase the inspections that occurred in FY26 compared?
Yes, I will say yes.
Do you agree?
Barbara Tayamo, absolutely.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, and I appreciate that. Sis Masi. Thank you, Mr.
Usmasi, Senator Talahi. I know I'm going to get, there was information that came in to the chair, so I'm going to allow him to work with the panel on that. So if anyone has an additional question after that too, I will be fair across the board to give time for that as well. But first, Senator Taidagui, you're recognized at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon to my colleagues, and of course, good afternoon to Customs. Definitely hardworking individuals. I greatly appreciate not just those who are sitting in front, but those who are sitting in the back. You know, you're that generation that Mr. Perez talked about, that you're going to be next. So absorb as much information as you can, because one day you'll be sitting on this table too, answering some of our questions. So again, I greatly appreciate all that you're doing. Always good to see you, Mr. Mendiola. I do have a question with regards to why in your budget you have no drug testing for officers. In FY26, you had some funding set aside for $5,363 in FY26 for drug testing, and I'm not seeing anything in FY27. Is there a reason why?
Senator, there was an error when on my submission. It's actually under workers' comp, but actually that was initially supposed to be for the drug testing.
Okay, and how much do you have for drug testing?
7,500.
7,500. Okay, thank you. That's good to know. So you don't have anything for workman's comp is also zero. What do you have there for workman's comp?
No, we didn't budget for workers' comp.
Okay. Okay, so it stays zero. Okay, the other one is, you know, individuals that are hired, well, in order to hire, especially now that I have the CFO there, in order for you to hire any officers, you have to at least prove that there is funding available. Is that correct, before you hire anyone?
Yes.
So you have to make sure that there's money in the bank, you know, it's all set to go and set aside for that. Okay. So that being said, so how many of these openings do you have in FY26 that was not fulfilled in the amount that was appropriated to you in FY26? Is there any funding left over from that, just on the hiring?
Right now, for fiscal year 26, to date, there is a lapse of 1.1
million, right? Okay, so there's 1.1 million. Now, when you go into FY 2027, it's important to have funding available to hire these individuals. So we need to, that money that was in lapse of 1.1 million, do you already have that obligated for the end of the fiscal year, or is the intention, because of your training programs are sporadic throughout the year, it doesn't always land on the fiscal year, the beginning of the fiscal year?
those positions are still budgeted for in fiscal year 27.
Okay, so, but do you think you're going to be able to spend that 1.1 million for FY26?
We hope to, yes.
Probability is very high since you've went through your recruitment already. I mean, we have gone through that training, do you think? Chief? Yeah.
Yes, Senator. I'm making sure that the funding that's provided for the FTEs for FY26 are used for FY26, and I'm pushing with the front office to work with DOA to make sure that we have the recruitment process in place within the next 30 days.
30 days?
30 days,
yes. 30 days. Okay, that's good news. Okay. The last audit, I think someone brought that up earlier, something about the last audit that I saw for customs and quarantine was for fiscal year FY 2021, and I believe that had to do with the beverage containers and coming in and how it's assessed. There are, of course, findings in that, and that was a while ago, but there are some findings there that to improve on your operations. Has that been fulfilled? Given you enough time to fulfill what the audit's findings are?
What year is that audit, Senator?
Well, the last audit that you've ever had actually was, it was for fiscal year FY 2021, and it was audited on 2025, 4/23/25, I believe it came out. It's audit number 25-06, Customs and Quarantine.
Is that, Senator, is that the tobacco audit or?
And the beverage, alcoholic?
Alcohol.
Alcohol and beverages. Yeah.
We've implemented some changes to as far as how we, the alcohol. But more important, I think we also have done that in both for alcohol and tobacco, changing some of our policies and what we do internally as far as tracking and reporting it.
So you fulfilled that obligation already that was recommended?
I gotta re-look at that thing, if you can just give me time to look at it.
Okay.
Because I'm trying to recollect if we really did if we were really audited on alcohol. Because alcohol and tobacco, although there are protocols in place that we do, a lot of it does fall with as far as the processing of tobacco products. But if you can give me time, I can get back with you regarding what number? 25 dash
25-06.
06.
You can find it in the public auditor's reports. Just type in the customs quarantine. It'll
Yeah,
pop right up.
but for a lot of the audits that customs has been subject to, it's been our policy to take on and improve upon based on the recommendations of those audit findings. Even with our limited resources and our technology, but we've done our best to improve upon our processes, especially as a result of audit recommendations.
Well, the good news for you is that, a lot of times I keep an eye on the special funds that are trending. And last year at this time, there was actually a negative in the projected revenues for the special fund under customs and quarantine. I believe it was 107,902. While FY26 today, you're actually, at least there's two that are trending higher than projected, but everyone else is in the negative. Customs and quarantine is actually trending $590,000 more for March in the CRER report, which is a good thing. It makes you wonder because a lot of those funds come from tourists, right? So how do you feel about that? I mean, what do you think is trending that it's actually going higher than last year?
Well, Senator, I was just reviewing the passenger count that we get every month from the airport, and we haven't received for the month of March yet. So now that you're saying that there's an increase for the month of March,
yep.
I don't see that right now.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully they will send it to us, but that's good news for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not until the end of the year that any excess revenue in this fund will go to you. I mean, it's done by the end of the year, but at least there's some funding there. And like I said, it's trailing at $590,000 more. So it's good news. Last question I have regarding the use tax. Now, I know that airport plays a role in inspecting cargo that's coming from the airport and to determine, to ensure that use taxes are applied, for revenue tax. But are you getting any funding from doing that work that Custom has to do to ensure that these products that you're all smiling, I see, it's probably a sore thumb somewhere, but all the work that you're doing to inspect this cargo that puts money into the use tax funds, and does Customs get any of that to help augment the work that you're doing up there at the airport?
Senator, your time, but I'm going to
I'll
circle back if you need some extra time after I defer to the chair. But that's the last question on that one, then I'll go to the chairman again.
Good.
Can I answer that?
Go ahead, of course. You can answer.
Okay, so you're right. We haven't been receiving any funding from the use tax, but there is a law which states that Customs should get 20% of whatever amount that is collected for use tax at every year. So I found out that CQA has to include that as part of the budget process, that we should make sure that we advise the legislature that Customs is asking for the 20% of the use tax that is afforded to the agency.
And is it in there? Is it in your request?
Yes, we include
Okay.
it.
So,
Thank you for that.
lobby for that, because it's money that should have been given to you many times over. That would help augment. So thank you. Thank you for that, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. We'll put 2 minutes on the clock for the chair, and then anybody else needs additional time, we will give it. Chairman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, and Mr. Director, and to your team as well. And I want to, again, thank you for working closely with our committee, and for the OFB chair working closely with his committee, and him being my vice chair as well, and working closely and in constant communication, not just with ourselves, chair and vice chair, but also with the administration. I want to read what the acting governor had texted me and called me and texted me as well, because he's watching this. He says, Senator Guåhan, as we have discussed during the bill signing ceremony for the ESCUDA system, I'm directing DOA to implement a CQA recruitment and retention differential pay policy. This will address the threat we face with the recruitment of our officers by federal law enforcement agencies. We have sufficient funds to cover an adjustment through the end of the fiscal year. Let's work together with Chairman Dueñas on the funding level for next year. I'm certain the additional revenue will be collected through excise taxes from the new ESCUDA system will support our officers. So that just from the acting governor. And again, I want to thank Senator Dueñas for helping write the op-ed today as well, because they took it to heart, and we said, hey, look, this is the money that you're going to collect. We're going to fund you guys, and You know, when we're hearing that your valedictorian the week after is pilfered by the federal government, you know, Houston, we have a problem, right? So we hope that in this next cycle that we don't have whoever is, whether valedictorian or not, that they're not pilfered by another federal agency. So congratulations and thank you for working closely with our committee and the OFB committee and work closely with the collaboration with the administration. So thank you and congratulations on that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, anything additional to Senator Gumtata? Thank you. Senator Talai, do you have any additional questions?
Yes. So when you said you included the use tax in your budget requests, is that on that 3.4 million additional, or are you just on the bottom where it says to include use tax?
It's 20%. The law
Yes.
is very specific when it says use tax collection for the fiscal year, 20% goes to customs. And there's other agencies.
Right. So all you did was say you want to make sure you get that?
Yes.
Okay. And we don't have an amount and you haven't allocated it anywhere?
Not at this time.
Okay.
We do have preliminary numbers for that amount, because we do track it as a result of an audit.
Okay.
So
What does it look like?
we're tracking currently, right now for the current FY, it's 761,000, and previous years it's upwards of 1.2 million dollars for the past 2 fiscal years.
Is that the 20% or that's a total?
That's the 20% of the 4%.
Okay. Thanks. And then, is it true that the GFMIS is causing delay in your expenditure of federal funds and that you've actually lost $30,800 in December back, or had to return that, and are at risk of returning $79,000 in September if you don't use it in federal funds?
Are you talking about this year?
Yes.
Yes, right. We have, if we don't expend the federal grant.
Senator, I'll just answer that generally. Colonel Franklin Gutierrez, we do have multiple federal grants that are expiring on the 30th of September, and all of those items are currently with GSA, and they're procurement type of items that are current requisitions that are pending awarding.
Did you have to return $30,000 in December?
I'm not too sure.
We'll get back to you on that particular one. I don't know, but I know that we have grants under our burnt grants, as well as the port security grants that are expiring 2022, 2023, as well as the we're sub-grantee under with Bureau of Statistics and Plans, and we have that grant is expiring at the end of the
That one, are you expected to use it all? Or is there some kind of delay?
Everything that, as far as zeroing out, everything's been identified. We're just waiting for
Waiting for who?
It's been requisitioned into GSA, and we're just waiting for the review and the awarding.
So how long has it been waiting?
Several months.
Several months.
Months,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, some of them are more recent, but then I want to say starting since January, we were really submitting multiple requests. I think we have around $2.1 million that are pending awarding. That's to include our drone program as well. We have 7 drones and 8 drones total for that, yeah.
All right, and you're saying the backup is strictly GSA?
Senator, if I may, we should also mention that some of those grants are on hold right now with the federal government shut down. Some of the offices in FEMA have not gone back to work on these grants, so it's not strictly just a procurement issue on Guam. It's the federal government themselves. There's a lot of the offices that has not gone back to work yet. So those grants are on hold. Although we do have the requisitions in play, it can't move until that hold is lifted from the federal government themselves.
All right, but all right. If we could get a real clear accounting of that soon, Director, just what is pending at GSA and how long they've been pending, And how many of those expire in September, right?
Yes, Senator, we have several, especially we have IFB equipment that has been forwarded to GSA since March, and we're still waiting for them to come back to us and let us know where they're at with this particular equipment. But in total, my agency at this point in time has a total of $2.1 million worth of purchase order down at GSA. And I understand the challenges that we have with GSA because of the number of personnel that they have. They're always short too, but I'm hoping that they can allow and give us the opportunity to make sure that we get all this equipment before the closing of the fiscal year. I don't want to see any lapses based on our equipment, because if we don't partake in this equipment, then we're going to lose it.
Right. Did we lose the 30,800 in December?
I'm not too sure about that.
All right. Okay. Please check and let me know. Thank you. And thank you all again for all your work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just Masi, Senator. Senator Tadigui, did you have any additional questions?
Yeah, just one more question. The funding that you're talking about is coming from BSP, right? The one that you said it's been put on hold?
No,
Okay.
the funding that Colonel JT is talking about is the port security grant. So some of them were there were reprogramming requests, and then there were other issues. And if you notice that certain areas like FEMA and TSA, they got shut down because of funding. So their administrative side basically went silent for the last few months. So that's what we're waiting for at this point.
The drones you mentioned earlier, are you getting drones through grants?
Correct, and that's
what-
under the port
what?
security grant, and
Port
7
security?
are under an IDIQ,
Okay.
which is already currently with GSA.
Okay. Do you have any grants under the BEADS program? The BEADS? Nothing, right? You're not
No,
doing anything under BEADS?
Not that I'm
Okay,
aware of.
okay,
so maybe you could enlighten us.
Oh,
Later.
there's money there, but unfortunately, like you said earlier, the federal government has put a hold on it, on its guidance. You know, there's $150 million there sitting there. Oh, no, I'm sorry, $130 million sitting there for Guam right now. It's from the BEADS program, but unfortunately, March has passed with regards to how we can spend that money, and we're still waiting. We might know in about 2 more weeks, but that's a probability for Customs to actually go seek some funding there. That's $130 million, so hopefully you could address some of your needs too as well, especially for technology-wise. So thank you, and thank you everybody for all your hard work. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Just Masi, Senator Tadigui. So I'll just complete my questions, and then we'll be done for this public hearing. So once again, Chief, actually you have quite a challenge in front of you, because according to Office of Finance and Budget, you're currently lapsing at $2.5 million for the current fiscal year. So we'll follow you through that process. That's what's happening. I like to use perspective, Chief, just so that we all kind of understand what the legislature's been up to in terms of helping Customs. So the actual fiscal year 2025 expenditures and encumbrances were $18,653,796. The fiscal 26 authorized level was $22,238,000, about a little bit over $4 million, increase based on your expenditures and encumbrances. That's the closeout of the fiscal year. That's what you actually spent. The current year request is $24,113,737. That is identical to the governor's request, but it's not a status quo request. Your variance actually from 27 to 26 is 1.875 million for your variance, and that's a variance, although still tracking at a 2.5 million lapses. So this is what we're contending with from the perspective of finance and budget in terms of what you're actually able to spend. Chief, I think it's important that you're saying that you're going to work really hard. It's now close to the end of April. So we've got May, June, and my understanding is that it has been the practice of the administration to discontinue POs, purchase orders, and other procurements beyond June. So I hope you have stuff in the pike ready to go, because other than that, I don't see it happening beyond June unless there's a change in policy. So it's going to be your personnel actions, it's going to be your procurement. Can I just ask though, Chief and Director, and maybe anybody else who wants to chime in, the SO, or like, how are we tracking at 2.5 million? That seems quite large in terms of the current lapses.
Well, as the director said, we have about 2.1 in procurement at GSA. We also have some of the labs are, because of the recruitment, that are not filled at this point. As I mentioned, 1.1 is what I'm tracking for the year for the recruitment side.
I'd like to direct my colleagues to the footnotes on the budget. So just going through that, we're looking at this includes recruitment and progress for Director's Office 7 and Logistics and Support 15 in terms of recruitments. Is that still what's going on? And that should be on the footnotes of your budget digest as well, footnote 2.
So we have 38 vacancies, and of the 38, the trainees, there's total of 21. From that, we have 10 officer vacancies and 7 support staff.
So that's the Recruitment and Progress Director's Office 7, Logistics and Support 15.
Actually 10.
10, okay, so that should be adjusted.
Yes.
Footnote 3 says includes 13 for 2026 FY Customs Quarantine trainees. 20 fiscal year 2027, I think we're good on that because that's your presentation. 10 positions funded by CQA Inspection Fund carryover from 23. So you're
Yes.
still exhausting that revenue?
Yes, it should be exhausted by this year.
And that special fund?
Yes.
Yeah, so that cannot, you're right, that cannot lapse.
Yeah.
That belongs to you, and so we thank you for that, because that's a big, that's one of those that you don't have to worry about, Chief. That, it's always your fallback, right? If something goes wrong in terms of other, operational issues, yeah, they can't touch that. That's your funds. So that's good to hear. So footnote 4, miscellaneous appropriation under 3860. I believe that was the Budget Act or fiscal 26. 10 CQA officer trainees. That's on track. Okay, thank you. So fiscal year 23 Customs Agriculture Inspection Fund. Over collection 651,000. Funded 10 positions. Is that kind of a 8 Customs and Quarantine Officer 1 and 2 Customs Quarantine Officer trainee? Is that a loop back to the earlier appropriation?
Yes.
23?
This goes back to Senator Charlahi with the additional 10.
Okay.
So that's where the additional 10 came from the overcollection of the 23.
So that's where that lines out. Okay, so we're clear on that, and that was, yes, a question from Senator Charlahi. Thank you. Proposed budget staffing pattern accounts for 1326 of the 26 CQA and the 10 positions carryover. So yeah, so we're looking strong going into there to include the cycle that would be funded in 27. So, folks, I look forward to working on this going forward. I really look forward to trying to see what the SCUDA implementation is going to do. And I don't have any problem working on the adjustment. That's exactly what we've always asked for, that you get the green light from BBMR, because the green light exists under both special conditions, whether or not it's your capital outlay or whether it's your fixed cost. And if the fixed cost is something that they're saying, they're willing to cut loose and to make sure that you have that recruitment and retention, that's internal. That's their authority. And then they got to come back to us and say, this is what we've done, and this is why it needs to be funded going forward, because we've been able to, provide for that compensation, and that compensation becomes a fixed cost. My concern really is on the issue of procurement, and that is where, I've been telling all the agencies that, listen, if you have the authority and you have that procurement going forward, don't give up on it when things close. See if you can see that through, even to the time when the closing of the books starts to become near, meaning sometime around, we'll be debating this budget in July, anticipating, a vote on July 17. And so going forward from there, through August, there's no reason if you're on track, your procurement's on track, finish that money. Get it encumbered, get it committed, so that you don't have to have this capital outlay that you need hanging over your head for fiscal year 27. I cannot overemphasize how many of the pre-budget meetings that I've had that I'm frustrated because those that are coming before us have money now. And to be going forward and once again having to push that into fiscal year 2027, when if you can just get that procurement out, it's locked and loaded. You have it available to be able to do that. And that's one less worry that you have. We had GPD this morning, and, they have their aircon issues and everything else with the evidence and their labs. And it's like, man, get that thing fixed now or get the procurement in, so that you don't have to be sweating that for the fiscal year 2027. So I encourage you to continue all the way through in order to be able to do that, so that we can go into fiscal year 27 as clean as possible, and then manage that during that time. So just before I close, we have one other message. Okay. Oh, yes, I forgot, and I got to start asking the other agencies this. Your leave, man, I don't know how this has happened. We're going to have a public hearing on a couple of bills here in a week or so. But I ever since I was the director, it was absolutely a no-no to go past 320. I don't know how it's happening, but guys, do you have any of your customs officers, employees throughout the entire, CQA that have accrued hours beyond the 320, which the Attorney General has noted by law? Okay. Can you give me a breakdown of that, Chief Pareto? Yeah, we're going to have to look at that, because what we're looking at is, one of the contemplations really is that to extend this out for a year, because we understand the problematic situation that you have, being short-staffed already, and then doesn't matter if you're holding on to the hours above 320 and you want to take it, if manpower doesn't, suffice for that, right? But hopefully what happens is our cycles come through, and as you get on the recruits and they're in the field, if you have additional time to expend them, then we have to address the law going forward beyond that. But it's going to be unfair to, to not allow for that's been booked. Like I said, I don't know how it's been that way. I encourage those to not do that anymore, because, you might lose it, sir.
Senator, I really think that, the reason why a lot of the law enforcement was because for many years we've been short, and so a lot of times leave has been denied because of operational, and it's just kind of unfortunate that we're getting penalized for that, and rather than not, maybe 200 can go towards sick leave instead of 100 or things like that, right? Just to save the leave, but hopefully we can figure it out, or maybe a bill to make that an amendment to the law.
Yeah.
At least for law enforcement, because we're always covered under an exemption, and then I guess the exemption doesn't apply based on the legal opinion, I believe.
Yeah, we're going to have to do something. I think that I don't know. I think that we'll have to work with DOA and how we formulate the policy, because I understand the law enforcement issue. We all do, in terms of how that happens. The thing is that I don't think we can implement an ununiform policy. So I think we're going to have to solve it in terms of what does it mean in terms of the balance of annual and sick. And I just say that because, folks, once we, accumulate this total, we have to look at what actually it means in dollars and cents. And that's a real, that's a real impact in terms of the ability to give the folks their time off. We also do not want to get in a perennial situation. We had this with DOC, and it was really to the point where they were telling us it was getting bad. We also really got to make sure that do everything we can to give our people their time off as well. I mean, with your families, for your health, for your, everything that really encompasses what you do. It's not healthy to continue to work hours and accumulate hours beyond, your ability to take time off and relax and be with your family and kind of, adjust that way. But we'll address it, but we need to know. So that needs to be part of information coming to us right away, Chief Pareto, so we can calculate that and know what it is as we contemplate legislation going forward. So that's really all I have, folks. Thank you once again for all you do, and thank you, for all the work that you put in to get recent legislation passed and what that's going to mean going forward. And we'll all work on the implementation as well. But I think we can see and demonstrate by the last several fiscal years, your budget has definitely exponentially increased, and so we want to make sure that we have a steady level going forward as we do the additional work. So with that, for Customs and Quarantine, thank you for all the senators that were here today to hear the budget, and we are adjourned at 4:07. Jesus Masi, Committee on Finance and Government Operations, hereby adjourned.